Well, I got a good friend of mine coming today, Tom Johnson. I'm sure y'all all know him. He needs no introduction, and it's going to be a great show. He's somewhat of a legend in Cleveland. So you waited, was you wait until the right time, or was you just too busy to?
No, it was a combination of waiting till we'd paid our other house down enough to have enough equity to build what she wanted to build, and but when your children are already grown and she's building a house that still has David, Kristen, Sarah's room labeled, and they don't live with you anymore,
right.
then you're building more house than you should have.
But
but it was a great spot.
I wondered about building a house
terrific.
sooner, but I don't know. Looking back, what would you recommend? Build it sooner?
No, more often. I think everybody I've ever known that built, looks at the product they finish, and say, "Gosh, you could have done that better." The people that I know, like yourself, that have done it over and over and over, sometimes for yourself, but usually for other people. You look at it and say, if I had that to do again, I could do that. It's like anything, football players, surgeons, I'm sure, anybody. They look at things and say, I could do that a little bit better. If I did it again, I wouldn't forget this. I would make that porch 2 feet wider, I would, whatever.
And what works for you then might not work for you now.
Correct. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And to be able to think, well, what are those stairs going to be like when I'm 75?
Yeah, everybody thinks they want one level, but they'll build 2 level. Is it really hard getting older to get upstairs?
Oh, absolutely. If I had to do over again, I'd think about some kind of elevator or something different in mind. Yeah, absolutely.
And you wouldn't have thought that 10 years ago?
Oh, no. No, absolutely. I knew I was going to get old, Dee, but I didn't think it'd happen this fast.
But you're not old.
It depends what I'm doing. Yeah, there's some things I do very well. And it's, again, like yourself, you're a product of every experience you've had in your life. And there are some things you do better than you did when you were 20. There's some things you don't do as well as you did when you were 20. So, sure. Yeah, there's different things, but I think there's some business things I see a lot more clearly now than I did earlier, and there's things that I try to fix and realize, shoot, you can't carry that anymore, you can't pick that up anymore, you can't walk up the stairs with that anymore.
Whenever you read a story in the newspaper or see something on television about somebody getting arrested, you naturally assume they're guilty. Unless the story's about you or someone you love, then you'll think differently. And you'll want a lawyer who will defend you. My name's Scott Canavis. If you or someone you love has been charged with a crime, call me. I'll return your phone calls, I'll work on your case, and I will defend you.
You do look at things differently when you get older, and we may look at it in 10 years different than we would now. And if we talk to the older people, we really won't listen to them, just like we didn't back then.
Didn't listen to our mother and father, and they were telling us the truth, and we didn't believe it.
What was something that comes to your mind that if you'd have listened?
Patience, probably. My dad, I can remember him saying, just take your time. Wait it out. This will come. You'll figure it out. You'll get, but at the time I was in such a big hurry to get it done and move on to the next adventure. And, every chapter of your life has got just a terrific things that occur in that chapter. Sometimes you don't see the good things until you look back. At the time you're going through them, they seem like trials. But, all those things are, what do they say? They're either a lesson or a blessing. You go through those, but you look backwards and think, man, when I was 30, it was fabulous. When I was 50, it was fabulous. But going through those times were hard times.
Oh,
the struggle is sort of what made you strong, though.
But they absolutely were struggles.
Oh,
I
no
think back
question.
and think,
No question.
man, how did I stand it?
No question.
And you know,
and there's times now that you look at it and you think, boy, there's difficult things. You know, you look at your parents getting older. You know, I watch my kids look at us, and you know, there were things that as being a parent, I thought was just so hard. I look at my children being parents, and I just delight in it. It is just terrific watching them be parents and try to say to them, don't worry about it. Your house doesn't have to be clean. You know, your kids don't have to be perfect. They're not going to be perfect. You know, enjoy the good. You know, just take a deep breath. It's all right.
but we didn't listen.
But we didn't listen to that. And we
Didn't
didn't do it
listen.
either. We didn't do it either. So you know, you live and you learn. It's I can't remember who said it, but it's a great life if you don't weaken. You know, but I do think there's a lot to be said about getting up, dressing up, and showing up every day.
Boy, that is the truth. You know, I knew people in kindergarten, grammar school,
Sure.
junior high, and high school that just showed up, and they far exceeded me, and I was smarter than they were, but they just persisted with it.
Well, and you know, there's things that we I think look back and feel like are critically important that we may lack or we may not be as good as someone else. And then as we get older, we realize that just that ability to push yourself, to make yourself, again, get up, dress up, show up every single day is almost more important than talent, almost more important than brains. I mean, all of those things are important, but we've all seen those people that were some of your highest academic achievers in high school that you look at now and think, well, what happened? Why doesn't the success ratio follow that? You know, but there is a great deal of, and people learn at different places. I think for me, I was lucky enough, you know, playing sports that you learned kind of the harder you worked, the better you got at something, and that there were people that had more talent than you did, but weren't ultimately maybe as successful in a given sport, but they didn't work at it very hard. You know, they had natural ability. You know, I know you've seen those folks too that academically outperformed us, but then you think, God, they can't come in out of the rain.
Yeah.
And you do say, what is the real value? Is it production? Is it getting something done? You know, I have a really good friend of mine, Ken Hart, who I talked into teaching Sunday school one time. And Ken said, I'm not the right guy to teach Sunday school. No, he said he was a terrible Christian. He wasn't. But he said, I was, you know, not a good Bible student. I'm not this, I'm not that. And I said, yeah, but if you're the guy that's willing to get up and teach it, you are the right guy. Because there's a lot of people that are great Bible students that are great studies of the Word, but they won't stand up and teach. So if you're the one willing to do it, then by George, you are the best one for it. So there's a lot of that.
Who was it? Calvin Coolidge, that famous quote. Was it Calvin Coolidge that said, persistence has always and will solve the problems over skill, talent, and education?
I don't remember if that's who said it, but it is correct. There's no question.
It's a long quote.
I know I played football with some just people that God just tapped with a wand and said, you're great, you're fast, you're quick, you're got good feet. But there were things they did lack. They weren't necessarily great teammates. They weren't necessarily good attitude. They weren't great practice players. And there were other players that ultimately ended up going on and doing great things in the sport. And ultimately had the ability, you know, because of maybe their they were perceived as a great athlete, had the opportunity to help change other people's lives. But it was not necessarily the gifts they were given as far as on the field.
We have to go back to, what is the real reason for any of it? Maybe, you know, is it just, you know, maybe those real talented people didn't have a why.
I agree.
to do it.
I agree. Or a desire.
Do you have to?
I mean, I think you have to have a passion. There are different things in everybody's life. You know, it could be art, it could be music, you know, it could be, but things that you're passionate about. You know, performing at a high level, and whatever thing you choose to take on. The passion for that, I think, is a big deal. That's, to me, that would be what drives success, maybe more than anything else.
Glenn Ramsay called it desire.
Yeah, that would be right. We had. I think that's exactly right. That would be a good East Tennessee description of it. So I think you're right. But yeah, I do. I mean, you know, I think we all. And I don't even know, I didn't mean to turn this into some religious discussion necessarily, but I don't know how you can go through life and not have it be part of your life. But I do think all of us have been given what, and I don't know how to describe it, but I'll call it a personal, non-transferable mission. I think, like it or not, there are things in your life that you're the one that needs to do it. And you're the one that needs to do it because of the experiences you've had, the way you were raised, where you were raised, how you came in contact with this individual who might be having the same problem. But I think there's, you know, a lot of driving things in your life. But I do think as we go through life, we run into things that are what I would call personal, just for you. It's going to be a job you're going to have to do. Transferable missions. And
I never thought of it that way, but you could be exactly right.
I'll give you one.
Very specific.
Yeah, well, I'll give you one real specific thing in my life. You know, we end up we're in the football business for a little while, and in the off season, I got to work for a bank. And they basically, I wasn't a smart banker at all. I thought everybody could pay back $1,000, and that's not true. But I wasn't necessarily a great banker. But they wanted me to go out and call on businesses to get bring business to old Cleveland Bank and Trust. You might remember. And it was only because I had played football and people would let me in their office to talk to me. One of the guys I called on was Life Care Centers of America, Forrest Preston. Forrest offers me a job. I leave the bank after I quit playing football and go to work for Forrest and get involved in the long-term care business, which I really thoroughly enjoyed, wouldn't trade it for anything, wouldn't swap my time with Life Care. But we had the opportunity to start our own little company, which we did. That was a long-term care company. And at about the same time, my youngest daughter, we have 3 children, my youngest daughter, who's 48 now, was born with Down syndrome. Well, at the time, those are, in my mind, sort of 2 parallel paths. Sarah, that we're raising, my job in the long-term care world. But as she got older, those 2 things became kind of intertwined. In other words, the same way as you look at your own children's future, you envision the issues that you're going to have and that you might need to anticipate. Well, with Sarah, we were anticipating what issues we might have with a Down syndrome child, most of which never came true, which is probably true for most of the things we worry about. But I could see a future that had some similarities to the long-term care business. In other words, how do I take care of her as she ages, as she gets older? And I looked at my seniors that I'm taking care of in our nursing homes and assisted living and independent living properties. Well, when Sarah finishes high school, she wants to go to college like her older brother and sister. Well, academically, she's not quite in that spot to be able to do that, but she wants to continue her education. Well, I get looking around thinking, how do I do that? Well, we find we look all over the country for schools for Sarah, and I find 5 schools for mentally challenged adults, and they were all private. And private like Macaulay, Baylor.
5.
Yeah. Now, there were all kinds of sheltered workshops, there were all kinds of church programs that we visited and we looked at that looked like they were about to go broke, and before you left they were asking you for a donation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm a little worried because I'm assuming I will probably pass from this world before my daughter does, so I don't want her in a program that's going away.
Yeah.
So how do I find a school? Well, we find one in Frankfort, Kentucky. Now that we found like I said, we found 5 in the country, but they were all private. Again, very expensive, Macaulay, Baylor kind of prices. We were lucky in that we'd had reasonable business opportunities in our life. My mother and dad were very supportive of my daughter. My brothers were incredibly supportive of my daughter. So we could figure out a way to pay for that. Now, that wasn't true for everybody.
No.
Sarah takes off and goes to Stewart Homeschool, 400 boarding students. 47 states were represented, 3 countries. I mean, it was a magnificent place. But it drove me crazy watching Sarah flourish in this school in Frankfort, Kentucky, and watching friends of hers that was out of reach for them to be able to go to that school, home watching Andy Griffith and eating Cheetos, waiting for mom and dad to get home from work. Mm-hmm. Wasn't anything wrong with, it was what was available. So the longer we looked at it, the more we thought, well, maybe that's something we need to do. What's the difference in Stewart Homeschool and my nursing homes? Well, Stewart Homeschool offers 3 hots and a cot. Nursing homes offer 3 hots and a cot. Daily activities at the nursing home, birthday, Bible, and bingo, or whatever. We've got activities, of course, that are better than that. But yeah. I guess I'm being funny. Stewart Homeschool was maybe basketball, bocce, dances. The activities were different, but for the most part, it was the same thing. So who should start a school? This brilliant old offensive lineman that barely got out of school himself?
Tried to bank for a while?
No, he's not a good guy to start a school. And to sit there and say, Lord, don't have me start a school. I'm not the right guy to start a school. But who is? Well, I do know a little bit about 3 hots and a cot and activities, like my nursing homes, because that's what I'm doing for a living. Well, I do know a little bit about educating a mentally challenged child. Not a lot, but I know a little bit, more than most people. So maybe that's my personal non-transferable mission. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm supposed to take this nursing home company and turn it into a not-for-profit corporation and help fund a program over here that can serve these kids that have been eating Cheetos and watching Andy Griffith.
Maybe that's your
mission.
Purpose, your mission.
I think we've all got that sitting out there in
If
front of us.
it's not, it sure is a coincidence.
Right. You're preaching to the choir. But I think that's true for a lot of us.
Similar to Moses.
Well,
I don't want to lead these people. Right?
Wait till I tell my wife that I'm in the same boat with Moses. He didn't even need
But
a boat,
you're exactly right, though.
But I think all of us, and I guess that's what I might be saying to anybody listening to this too, is pay attention. There's things that are tugging at you. There's little things out there that are saying, hey, I can remember when my father died, and my mother was like, what am I going to do? And I can remember Mom saying, you know what? There's other women that have lost their husband. I know what that's like. I need to pick the phone up and call. I need to go visit. I need to go. What is the mission? There's a job for all of us to make this world a better place. There's a lot of crap going on right now in the United States, in the world. What do we get involved in? Well, I don't know. I can't do that. I can't. Bull.
Don't
You
you
can
think,
do that. Get off. Get out.
don't you think we have some people feel a need to make things better or do better or live better?
I think that's planted in you. Pay attention to it.
I
is
know
what
some
guess what I'm
people
saying.
that don't seem to have that.
Yeah, I
Is
hear
that
you.
just disguised?
I don't know.
I've wondered.
I don't know.
I wonder, do they have it figured out or are they lazy? I'm not sure which one it is.
I don't know. I know.
But now
and
I know-
we've all worked with people that it's never their fault.
But now
kind
let
of
me-
folks, and they're out there, but it's not true.
But you impress me as the guy. I mean, let's face it. Come to Cleveland, you play for the UT Vols, the center. I mean, not many do that.
Well,
Then
that,
you- then
that
you-
and $7 is when you can get coffee at Starbucks.
Then you
but yeah.
you play. Did you play
I did
pro
play
ball
professionally 3 years.
For what
after that.
team?
Well, I played with the Redskins for a year and a couple of years in the crazy World Football League. But and again, it would be sad if that were the only thing you ever were.
Yeah, but see,
But yeah, I hear you.
but then you go to the bank. I mean, and Forrest Preston doesn't. He's not known for hiring idiots.
He has picked some good people. There've been some good folks go through there. I'm not sure if I was one of them, but yes, he's done a good job at that. That's
Did
one
you
of his
have this
successes.
situation with your daughter?
Yep.
You step up to the plate, you find somewhere that she can go, that inspires you. You start to Truesdale School. So I'm not so sure if it's.
Well, I guess here's the question: is that planted in everybody? Is there? And I guess what I would say to you is I think people need to pay attention and perhaps act with what, I don't know what you want to call it, holy boldness. But say, you know what? I'm not sure if I can do that, but I'm going to step out there and try it. I'm going to go confidently in the direction of my dreams. Walden's Pond, I think Thoreau.
Yeah, Thoreau. Well, that was a good one.
Said, go confidently in the direction of your dreams and happiness will follow you. Well, I think there's a lot to that says somehow this world, if we're not careful, talks people into saying, I can't do that. And I don't know if that's, everything they see on television, they see somebody, oh, they're so much better than me, I'm the wrong person. But you're not the wrong person. If you're the one that's willing to step up, you're the right person. And you ought to.
I think maybe
And
it's.
failure's okay.
Oh, it's
It's mandatory.
It's the biggest advantage you've got. And the ability to be embarrassed is a superpower, isn't it?
I would have a big red S on my chest then.
But I think that
No,
maybe
you're right, though. You're
that's
exactly
a
right.
superpower.
Yeah, everything you've done hasn't turned out perfect.
Oh, I bet I've done
But how
some
much have you learned?
Look at me right now. I'm doing this thing, and I'm not the guy to do it.
You are the guy to do it. You do a great job of it.
But I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think that what motivates people is because I've studied it. Because I want to drink it if you could drink it.
Yep. I hear you.
Now, I know that somebody can be inspired to do something, but you can't ever underestimate the guy that needs to buy diapers.
Oh, yeah.
He will beat you every time. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
When
When he
a
needs
man's got to buy diapers,
Yep.
and I don't mean
No,
just
you're
diapers.
right.
I mean a man on a mission that's taking care of his family.
You are
Look
exactly
out,
right.
buddy.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat him.
You're exactly
You
right.
can try. You can
No,
emulate.
motivation is
but
incredible.
you ain't going. So you just have to have the. I was talking
And
to.
I think you have to look for those opportunities, too.
I was talking to a good friend of mine. You'd know him. In fact, we were at the same restaurant that you were at, Stacy's. It wasn't Alan, but it was another good friend of mine, 85 or something. Mm-hmm. And I was asking him about retirement and or quitting and everything. He said, Dee says, if you don't need to work, if you don't have to work, if you can't think of a reason to work, make one up. because you have to be doing something. He says you can't just go to the post office and stay busy. You have to feel like that you're accomplishing and moving something forward.
You know, I think he's giving you, telling you the exact truth.
This guy's worth 50, 100 million, I don't know.
You know, the number of residents that I've talked to in our senior care facilities that will say, I don't know why God doesn't take me today. I'm a burden on my family. I'm not doing anybody, and the depression that comes with that is the biggest challenge that as nursing home operators I think we have. I mean, healthcare is a big part of it, don't get me wrong, but it's probably the easiest part.
And maybe
delivering the healthcare, providing a reason to get up in the morning.
a why.
A why is huge. And if we can instill in them just maybe it's a letter writing campaign to their grandchildren or great grandchildren. Maybe it's somebody else in the facility that's having depression issues that they can go and visit and cheer up and be part of their life. You know, all those folks are going through hard times. As we've said, every chapter in our life has hard times in it, but they have great times in it too. And most of the time while we're going through it, it looks the hardest. Looking back,
It was
those
the fun
were good
times.
times. Yeah,
Good
those
times.
were good times.
Boy, I wish I could go back to them.
But those are good times right now. We just aren't seeing them. And the truth is, we don't always look for them. You know, we look for the next. You know, I know, just from your history, are a problem solver.
That's all I do.
That's all you do.
And a creator.
Well, I'm myself. Yeah, nobody has created more problems in my company than me, I can promise you. But when we look for those problems to solve, those are the hard things. So that is, our days are hard. Except they are really great too. They're joyous. There's great things going on. I mean, all the time. There's incredible successes that our kids are having, our spouses having, our other friends of ours are having that we can enjoy and rejoice in and be part of something that's really good. And it's you know, it's a fun time if we don't just get focused on the tough parts.
And on just waiting to die. That's such a bad thing, isn't it?
Well, you know, and I don't know, you know, again, I'm not trying to make this a religious visit, but I mean, I'm very ready for the next adventure. I don't know exactly what it'll be, but I'm ready for it. Except I've got a handful of things I'd like to get done before I go. You know, I mean, they tease us at the Methodist Church about who wants to go to heaven.
Yeah.
And people are just kind of going, I do, but not today.
I believe in it, but I don't want to go now.
Yeah. You know, so, and I know I've had the opportunity to speak at funerals a time or two in my life, and one of the things I always say is, there's no problem with this person. The only issue this person would have had about dying when they did is there were people they were leaving behind they loved that they wanted to help take care of.
That's right.
So if you're still here and you love the person that's passed, love the people they're leaving behind. That's the job they left you. You know, I'm the next adventure will be fabulous. I'm ready for that. But I've got some things I need to finish here. And I'd like to work on those. And I'd like to inspire, you know, other people to help continue some of the work that maybe I've started.
Tell me about that school. Now you've got a pretty good facility, right?
Well, the school's 19 years old. It's over in the Dockery subdivision area.
Hewitt
Road,
yeah.
Right. And it was really an old Methodist church. I say old. It was I'm trying to think of the name of the church.
Bill Clayton used to go there.
Yeah,
I went to a pancake breakfast there one time.
Yeah, it was a great operation, and we actually leased. They built a gymnasium on the church, and I think they built it with the idea, like a lot of churches do, they want to attract youth.
Yeah.
It was like many churches. It was getting older, and the added gym added probably $1 million in debt to the budget and not a whole lot of new income. So as any business knows, that makes it a little bit tough. We rented part of the church, the gym, and there were classrooms off the gym. We rented that from the church for the school, for part of the school. We needed the gym. We wanted extra classroom space. We were growing. And the church, again, was struggling like a lot of churches.
Sure.
I went to their administrative board meeting, and one of our public officials there that was in the Dean Register's office was one of the folks on their administrative board. And he said, "Tom, we've prayed for the children to come to this addition we've built on this church. We prayed for them." And I said, they did come.
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't yours. They're
Oh,
mine.
that's right. Isn't that weird?
And I said, maybe it's time to rethink the church's operation, and maybe it's time for us to take the building because they have come. The prayers that you offered up have been answered.
Boy,
They're just not exactly.
Well, that is really ironic, isn't it?
I had a girl that worked for me for a while, and she'd been telling me about her husband, and I'd never met him. And he came in the office one day, and he just wasn't at all what I expected. I just, what she had kind of shared with me, it was very different. I said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "I'm so glad I've got a chance to meet your husband." I said, "That's just not what I expected at all." And she said, "Well, he's the answer to prayer." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Not what I prayed for, but he's the answer, I guess." Well, I think that does happen to us once in a while. And I do think it happened at that little Methodist church. So yes, we have probably 12 acres and a building that
How many
renovated.
students, or how many kids?
We've got about 40 students there. We don't have housing there yet, and I need to do that. We've been working on that. COVID probably set us back 3 or 4 years on getting that done. We need to build housing. That's that population, that mentally challenged population, is not one that's supported extremely well by government programs. Medicaid and Medicare are great programs for the seniors and elderly, but they don't. I can't decide. Who knows about politics? I don't. But that group doesn't particularly vote normally, and they aren't a big political.
Maybe
active.
they don't have a.
They don't have a great voice
Yeah.
in government, so they don't seem to get a lot of support. So there isn't really a lot of housing money and things for
Would
that
there
population.
be 40 kids from the Cleveland, Bradley County area that would
Well,
fit that?
there's 40. We have 40 students, and they're Chattanooga, Ottawa, and Cleveland. Now we've had people that have moved to Cleveland so their student could attend the school.
I mean, they come every day?
Yes.
How many days a year?
Well, we're a year-round program.
So they have
it's a year-round program.
Is it, what age groups?
Well, that we don't infringe on the public school system, and the public school system is required to educate a student through the age of 21. So we start at 22. In other words, I'm not taking students from the public school
So
system.
prior to that, they're in
They're
the
in the public school system, right?
So
And my daughter did the same thing.
Your mission
So
and
we
your
started
need was
at
what you're.
22, and it's a learning for life. So some of that's academic. In other words, if a student finishes, if my daughter Sarah was probably, even though she finished a high school program at 22, her academic level probably was more like 4th or 5th grade. That's not quite employable. Almost. And in some maybe some jobs it is,
Right.
but if I could take her to 7th, 8th, 9th grade level,
You're fine.
Extremely employable. Some of the best employees we've got came to us right out of high school and have been great employees in our facilities. Matter of fact, my daughter works now about 25 hours a week at Avail Assisted Living. And she
Right over here.
Yeah, she gets Chris Beckstrand runs, and he and partners own, and it's a delightful place. But he sort of gets to mother some of the little old folks, and the little old folks get to mother her a little bit. And it's she works in the dining room, thoroughly enjoys it. Have there been some bumps in the road? Yeah, there's some things we need to teach, not just Sarah, but our other students, so that they can be good employees. And I'll give you one kind of sort of cute example, I guess, or I thought it was kind of funny. Sarah starts in the dining room, and they say, after breakfast, we want the tables cleaned up. We want it to look like this, and they took a picture of it, how the salt shakers and pepper and napkins and all the tablecloth and it needs to be set up, and how the floors need to look, be vacuumed and all that, from between one meal to the next. And Sarah's figured that out, got that, okay, I know what to do. Well, they had at the time, she started about when they opened, they had maybe 28 or 9 residents, and I think they're fairly full now. They're probably close to 100. Well, there's a lot more sitting around time in that dining room now than there used to be. Well, it took Sarah quite some time to figure out that it wasn't her job, she didn't see it as her job to make the dining experience good for the resident. The way she was taught to start with was, your job is to clean the table, vacuum the floor, have it ready for lunch. Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden, lunch and breakfast got closer and closer together because people hung out longer and came earlier. Mm-hmm. Well, she's all of a sudden saying to these folks, go back to your room. You're in my way. I've got to clean that table. My job is to clean. Well, as a school, our job is now to make sure Sarah understands. So when she finishes at noon, comes back to school, part of the things we work on are things like, was the dining experience good for the resident? Did you bang into their feet with a vacuum cleaner because they were still sitting at the table? Did you tell them to take their coffee and go? No, you can't do that. You've got to make sure they have a nice dining experience and then take their coffee and then vacuum.
But isn't that something that even somebody without Down syndrome could do? I mean, that happens all the time.
Sure they could.
So that's really...
But can I make her a good employee? Can I help teach her some of those skills?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, we've got one young lady that has now bagged groceries at a grocery store for 14 years. I need to, and this is a shortcoming on my part, I need to make sure that we're developing programs that are teaching that bagger groceries how to scan, how to start doing inventory, how to understand when shelves are low and can I do something besides just bag groceries. So is there, is that something that maybe you as a youth, when you were looking for part-time jobs and maybe working at a grocery store, you would have picked up just like that? But sometimes my students don't. Now they can, but I've got to steer them in the right directions. We've got to make sure our staff is working on that vocational part. And I'm talking about that as like that's a big deal. We still have to do, reading, writing, arithmetic. They've still got to be able to log onto a computer. They've still got to be able to leave a message. They've got to know how to use spell check. Some of the things that, can they learn that? Absolutely they can. Does it take a little longer? Sure.
What's their mindset? Can you put it in a nutshell?
They want to feel needed as much as you do, or as much as I do, or as much as a mother does when their kids move out. They want to feel needed.
Same thing with those people at the nursing home.
I've got 2 students in totally separate things that are, and almost all of our students, we have 2 that aren't working right now, but every student works at least part-time. We learned a lot more at school or at work than we ever learned at school. But 2 of these parents came to me and said, we scheduled vacation and our child won't go with us. And I said, they won't go with you? Where are you going? You're going to Alaska or something? And he said, no, they need me at work. And they wouldn't go. That's how important it is to them. Yeah, being needed is crucial.
Do they know that,
I don't know. The money's not the big deal.
What is Down syndrome exactly?
Well, Down syndrome is a chromosome abnormality that.
Or is it just abnormal to me and you? I mean, who's
Well,
to say what?
it's the 21st. Yeah, you have 21 sets of chromosomes, and one of them has an extra chromosome in it. So
22.
So it's it's a chromosome abnormality that occurs at conception, and it causes mental delays. Now, can Sarah learn? Sure, absolutely. Are some of the things we were told when she was born 48 years ago were totally incorrect? Yes. Science knows a lot more about it today than they did then.
When she comes in the restaurant, she talks to the guys.
Oh yeah. No, she.
So it's.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of there's a wide swath of abilities within all of us. There is also a wide swath of abilities within the Down syndrome world. If you come into the school, we have the academic, the classes, math, reading, up on a board so everybody knows what class they're supposed to be in. But even within our group, there's a strata of, A, B, and C. We've got some students that are reading See Jane Run, and we've got a couple students that have read all the Harry Potter books. So, yeah, there's a wide swath of abilities. A lot of that is just how much did parents get involved in the education? Some parents were told at birth this child will never be able to read or write or
And they assumed that.
and they believed it.
Yeah.
Some fired their pediatrician in the hospital and got a new one. So it's, I wouldn't give anything for the fact that we had a young pediatrician that just gave us all kinds of promise, and that people like my father found a family up in New Jersey that worked for Hardwick Stove Company. That's who Dad was associated with. That had a Down syndrome child that was 15 when Sarah was born. They flew down, met us in the hospital room, and said, "You have got the most exciting future in front of you." At the time, I didn't think so. At the time, I thought we had a ball and chain, but that wasn't the case at all.
That's another example of somebody.
Another example of somebody that said, "It's my job."
Well, that was something for them to fly down and
all
tell
the way
you that.
down here. Yeah, no, it was just delightful, and they were just what you'd expect out of a New Jersey company or couple, just bullheaded. And they walked in, and of course my wife was still kind of upset, and of course I was too. They walked in and said, "Hey, we're here to talk to you about your Down syndrome child." And I said, "You know what? We can do this another day." And they said, "No, we're going to do it right now." And I said, "No, you're not." I said, "I can get your ass out of here." I said, "I'll put you out." They said, "No, you don't understand. It's more important than you."
Well, he was right, wasn't he?
And Buddy sat down in there, and I mean, it was, wife talked to Judy, and he talked to me, and I mean, it was the start of something really good. But, and again, I'm using that as an example, and I know I've told a long, drawn-out story, but we all have those types of things, maybe not life-changing all the time, but we all have those opportunities that show up in front of us.
We all have stuff that's real important to us, right?
Yep.
That's a problem to us.
Yep.
You're currently operating
Correct.
13 nurses. Is that a big job?
I think it is. I mean, it's approximately 2,000 patients, about 2,400 employees. I mean, it's not huge. It's nothing like, if you looked at Life Care, that's 40,000 employees and probably 35,000 patients.
But didn't you start over there off of Perimeter Plaza or something? You were.
Well, we had that's the corporate office. So
when did you start?
91.
So in 91 you said, "I'm gonna try this."
We leased, I say we, me, leased 2 nursing homes in North Carolina.
Leased them to operate them.
Yep. We had a purchase.
In North Carolina?
We had a purchase option to buy them at one point.
Where did you learn that business sense?
Well, from screwing up mostly. No, not really. I went to work. I left Cleveland Bank and Trust, late 70s, went to work for Life Care Centers, and I was there about 10 years. I did mergers and acquisitions for Life Care. In other words, I bought nursing homes for them to own and operate.
How did you know how to do that?
Well, in some ways, I thought Forrest was a little bit crazy, but looking back, if you made a loan, again, coming from the bank, if you made a loan on a car, you wouldn't loan more money than it was worth. So you research the car and understand it. If you were going to make a loan on a piece of property that was going to be built, you do homework on the builder. You do homework on maybe the architect if it was an architectural plan. You look at the building cost in the area, and if they're trying to borrow $100,000 on something that's going to cost $150,000 to build, do they have the $40,000? I mean, all the same things. If you're going to loan money on a project, you wouldn't loan it on it if you wouldn't buy it.
How long were you at the bank?
So I was at the bank almost 10 years.
Oh, okay. So you were well versed in.
Yeah, I was okay.
Was you there when Max was there?
Oh yeah, sure.
He's one of my best friends.
Sure, yeah. No, I've known that family for a long time, and Sam McReynolds was he was a smart banker, and they had some really
Don Irvin.
Don was there at the time.
Do you remember how he used to sit with his legs crossed?
How he sat on that leg, I don't understand. I don't know how he walked
He
on
would
that
go.
when he was done. There were some characters there. Arch Fitzgerald there. I mean, it was a...
Remember the Christmas parties they'd have every year?
Oh, yeah.
Georgia Gann?
It was a great, it was a great learning spot for me. And they sent me to LSU School of Banking, and they gave me some real opportunities. They were just a terrific organization for me.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Do you remember a saying Max used to have? And I say it to this day. I've got it above my desk. That's how significant it was. And he'd do his hands like this when he said it. Sometimes it just doesn't fit.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to have a reason. You don't have to make sense. Sometimes it just don't. And he'd do his hands. Just doesn't fit.
Yep. And that's right. But the nursing home business was not as big a jump as I really thought, and Forrest was the one that really said that. I mean, he convinced me of that.
I bet that was a big decision.
And he said, "Oh no, it was banks are not historically known to be really high payroll kind of places. So if you were, the opportunity that Forrest gave me was a commissionable kind of get paid for what you killed, and so if it's not totally different than a realtor. If you found a deal, you put it together. I had a little, draw a month, and but it was a commission based on what I found that they bought. So it was an exciting job, and now it puts you on the road a lot. I left on Sundays and came home on Fridays for a lot of years.
So you're just looking for
finding owners,
fishing,
finding owners, meeting them, talking to them about their properties.
So how long were you with him?
10 years.
So for 10 years, you researched buying funeral home or nursing homes, and you were able to see what worked and what didn't, and kind of the temperament.
Absolutely.
That was a big plus, wasn't it?
It was huge. It was huge. No question. And like I said, I wouldn't trade my time with Forrest and Life Care for anything. They were a terrific organization, and it gave us the opportunity, as it did a lot of people. There have been numerous folks that have come in under Life Care and went out and started their own organization.
33 years, roughly.
Yeah.
That's how long you've been.
That's correct. Since we've had our own.
How do you manage 13 funerals? I just can't imagine how that...
Hey, quit calling them funeral homes now. That's going to hurt me.
Nursing homes.
No, I know they are kind of God's waiting room, but
yeah.
They're not funeral homes.
I'm thinking of the...
No, I know exactly who you're thinking of, and I understand that.
But just the level of...
It's a management company.
But how did you know to do that?
You have I didn't. And it's like any other company that you get involved in. The people are what make it work. I promise you, I am. I almost said I'm the dumbest person in our company, although I just called somebody that the other day. Maybe it's not me.
Yeah.
But I am not for sure the smartest person in our company. But you hire people that are better at certain jobs than you are.
They're expensive, aren't they?
Well,
Those
they
people.
can be, sure. I was in a deposition not too long ago and had an attorney, if you've been in a deposition or two perhaps in your life, but they always start with where did you go to school, what's your background, where do you live, all that kind of silly stuff. And at some point they'll say, and what do you do for your company? Well, he asked me that, and I sat there a minute, and I said, I may have to get back to you for that, because I'm not actually sure. What I do is visit with all the folks that are our head of operations, head of clinical, head of HR, head of accounting, head of finance. You put that team together, and you hope that you can stand on the sidelines. And I think the biggest challenge for anybody running any company is to say, I want it done at my standard, but I want to do it with your hands. You want something built to your standard. You want it built the way it's supposed to be built. But you've got carpenters out there that are doing it for you.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you do to make sure that happens? Well, you inspect what you expect. And you go look at it. And you pick the right people to hammer those nails and put it together.
I think my job is to help support them in what they need.
That's exactly right.
Whether it's 2x4s or a Gatorade or more money or answers.
I said to my assistant when I hired her, I said, our job is to make it so easy for everybody else to work their butts off.
Support. We're support.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
And we have to know remember Sam Cannon?
Oh, yeah.
He used to say, I don't know how to play a fiddle, but I know when it's not in tune.
Yes.
That was so funny.
Well, Sam was a perfect example of practical
Boy, that was,
knowledge.
wasn't it?
Oh, he was. I loved him.
How long's he been dead?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I see Phil and Jan still pretty often. And
We used to go, me and you both go to the liar's table,
Yeah.
but on Sunday mornings, there was a slightly different group there on Sunday mornings that I used to go to. And it was Troy, Bill Harris,
Yep.
and Sam Cannon.
There's some names I haven't heard
And
of in a
Dole
long
Cry.
time. Oh, yeah.
And me. That was like, and Jim
Yep.
Price.
Yep.
That was kind of a little different twist to the liar.
Absolutely.
The whole conversations were different.
Yep.
You can go on a Sunday morning, it'll be different than it is on a Friday morning.
Absolutely.
Just a different.
Absolutely. No, Sam was, actually, that whole bunch you just described were terrific.
You know
guys.
that black cat outside, you didn't see it when you came in, but I went to Jim's funeral, and I came back, and that stray cat was here. And it was hunched over its food like this, the way Jim ate. And to this day, its name's Jim Price. Isn't it, Gwen?
Yes, it is.
I call it Jim Price.
I'll tell you, he was one of a kind. But I mean, that whole group. Did
you ever use him for photography?
I did, certainly did. Jim was a great guy. Cut out of him, he was one of a kind. But again, the trick I think is finding finding good people, and then giving them enough space to do what they do well. And the other thing I think you learn is there's a lot of doors into the same room. You don't have to do it the same way I do it, or the same way I would do it. Well, what's important is how it gets done. And if I can make our business simple enough, if I can say to our staff when I go and visit our buildings, if you don't know what to do, look at that person in that bed, and if it was your mother or father, how would you treat them?
That answers all of it.
And that answers, now there's a million rules and regulations that go with healthcare. And do you fight over every if and do you have to know and figure it out through the years that 55% of your, of your gross revenues payroll, 15% of it's debt service or thereabouts. Insurance is going to be 10%, and raw food or food's going to be another 11%. Do you have to know all that? Yeah, do you? And do you have to pay attention if it gets out of line? Yeah, you do. Are there things that you monitor? Yeah, but the biggest thing you can do is walk in the building, take a deep breath and see what it smells like. Walk down the hall and see if the residents' fingernails are cut and if they're smiling.
Well, that's important.
If they're dressed, if they're
who cuts their fingernails, their toenails? That's very important, isn't it? It's a very important thing.
And it is in every business in the world. Little thing. Everybody does the big things well.
Do you know what it's?
What do you do? Do you do the little things right? Do you clean up your construction sites?
Boy, every day at 5 o'clock.
There you go. But you know what? Not everybody does that.
No.
And so.
I don't do it for the customer. I do it for the guy coming in the next day.
Well, everybody puts a roof up, but not everybody cleans up. So, is it the big things? No, everybody does the big things pretty well. It's the little things that you got to stay on top of if you're going to be great.
If you had it to do all over again, what would you have done?
I think I'd have gone in the nursing home business. I like the industry.
But you didn't. What was your knowledge of the?
My introduction to it was calling on life care from the banking business.
5 years into your term?
I looked at it and I liked, and a lot of the same things that I liked the real estate part of it. Mm-hmm. I liked acquiring the land and owning the building. Not that I like the maintenance of it, but I like keeping it looking good. Again, Forrest was a great teacher on physical plants. I liked feeling like we were doing something that was important, and that was taking care of people. That was a big deal.
Maintenance. You can maintenance yourself to bankruptcy, right?
Yes,
you've got to have
Yes, you can. You got to do it.
You can get really ridiculous about it.
Yes, sir. You're exactly right.
I don't know.
There is a point of return, no return, yeah.
There's a point of stupidness, too, I think. Don't you?
No, I agree.
I don't know where it's at.
I agree.
And I'm oblivious to it. But I do know you can overdo it.
Yeah. No, and it's but it's a common thread that if you can't take care of your building, are you going to be able to take care of mom?
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's more more significant.
There is now. There's a lot of things, as you know, as a construction person, that you don't see. That's important too.
Very, very.
But
much.
You've got a lot of boilers and heat and air units, and even just in our little office building over there, there's I think 5 heating air units on the roof of that thing, and
it takes a crane to get them on there.
Oh yes, we just replaced one, and
did you have to buy a new curb?
Yeah,
they call it a curb.
Yeah. Well, the first one they came with the crane, put it up there, and had the wrong. I think they called it skirting, but
the curb they call it. Oh Lord!
Yeah, and they had to redo it. But yeah, of course. So you've got 15,000 feet of office space over there that we've got. And the only 3 that the heat went out on were mine, my assistants, and my controllers. So yeah, the rest of the building seemed to be doing fine, but ours was fine.
Where's your place at?
We're on Central Avenue. Matter of fact, the building I bought was my original office space with Life Care.
Is that right?
That's who
so
I bought
you've recently just bought?
Oh no, I bought it 20 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
No, we're a 30-something-year-old company, and
yeah,
I bought it 20 years ago from Forrest.
Oh, I know, Costa Randy Miller.
Yep.
You know Randy?
Yep.
Boy, he's a good neighbor, I bet.
Yep. Where we're just across the tracks there on Central, and it's again, it was a building that I used to tease Forrest and say you'd buy a burning barn if you could get the right terms. Well, he actually bought that building from the Church of God when it had burnt. I don't know if you have to go ask.
Well, didn't he sell furniture in there at one time?
At one time he did. Ask Eddie Cartwright. He was part of the volunteer fire department that responded when that building used to be a 2-story building. The top floor burnt. Forrest bought it from them, raked the top floor off, and built a facade around it, but didn't ever build the second floor back on.
Hey, let me ask you this.
So that's been our corporate office, the management company. That's been the management company.
I don't know how you've done it. That's way over my head, that big, massive business like that. That
It's no different than anything else you buy and rent. In a lot of ways, it's like franchises. You buy the franchise and then you run it.
I've got 25 apartment units.
Right.
And some of them
so
I've
different.
even forgot about
I know,
because they
sure.
pay. I guess that's the way it is. John Paul used to call it a digestion period where you can get comfortable having it or something. So let me ask you this. Back to staying inspired. After you sell these, is that going to be a big void? I mean, are you prepared for that?
Well, I think there's, I mean, the part, again, part of, if you think about the transition, we started originally in 91 as a for-profit company taking care of seniors. Mm-hmm. We made the move to nonprofit when we wanted to start the school and have a vehicle that would support the mission. Well, the mission was broad-based. So for Truesdale Foundation, Inc., which is the parent that owned the nursing homes and started the school, Truesdale Foundation, Inc.'s mission was to care for individuals who could no longer care for themselves independently. Okay, that's the mission. Well, that covers my students at the school. They can live very independently with just a little structure around their life. They don't drive, they don't manage their meds very well, they don't manage their money very well, they probably don't manage their health care very well, but they have parents, the students do. My seniors don't. So my seniors, we have to fill in some of those same blanks, but we have to fill them in, which is why, again, I felt like they kind of made sense to be together, that we were the ones to start the school. But we moved from the for-profit to the nonprofit, and that's been about 15 years ago, 18 years ago, something like that, because the school's 19 years.
That's becoming your mission.
It is.
That's your.
So
that's going to help you fill this void.
That's exactly right. So if we sell out, we don't sell the mission.
Right.
We sell the assets of perhaps the nursing homes.
You've almost just redirected your focus.
You've taken now, whatever you choose. Presently, Truesdale Foundation invests in nursing homes, but it doesn't mean that tomorrow we couldn't do something different a little bit with what we invest in. Will we still support the school? Yes. Will we still support the mission? Absolutely. Will we perhaps even help with? And again, you look at people in assisted living, and there's a difference in nursing homes, assisted living, and independent living. People that live in assisted living, they pay for that privately. There's no government money for that. How many people in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I don't know what the average price is for assisted living in Cleveland, but I would bet it's between $6,000 and $8,000 a month.
Probably right on it.
What percentage of people do you think have got $8,000 a month
2%.
of spendable income?
2%.
How many might have a short term, they sell a house, and they could stay in assisted living for 5 years or 4 years?
15%.
Yeah, I mean, there's some.
Very small,
But there's some.
Yeah.
But an awful lot of all of us live from hand to mouth. I mean, there's a lot of Cleveland and a lot of the United States. So maybe our mission is to figure out ways to support some of those folks that need the care and can't pay for it. Because one of the saddest things you see are seniors that can't take care of themselves and are trying to.
Boy, it's sad.
I mean, you see, and sometimes they'll move home with their children, but both of their children are working.
Irritable.
They
Whatever.
can't take care of them. They're in bed all day long. They got to have help to get from bed to toilet. They don't qualify for nursing care yet because they really aren't necessarily their acuity, how sick they are. They don't require medical attention. They require care, somebody to help them. They require a mama, somebody to be there to help them out of bed, to a bathroom, maybe help them do some very intimate kind of things like bathe. But somebody's got to do that. Now, there is Medicaid and Medicare for skilled care for people that have had a fallen, broken their hip, had hip fracture, need rehab, nursing home care. There is that, but that doesn't cover some of this other. There's more to being old than just being sick.
There's a
You may be
5-10 year,
old that you're not sick.
there's a 5-10 year gap there between when you're
Very apt to be.
Yeah.
Very apt to be. So could Truesdale step in and alleviate some of those issues? Maybe. Maybe we could. Now, does that mean we need to, invest in different things besides nursing homes? Well, if you had the staff to run them, nursing homes are great. But if I'm gone and, there aren't people that want to step in and be in the nursing home business, because it is a day-to-day, and it's a nickel and dime business. It's not a get-rich-quick business. It's a nickel and dime business, like every business.
Yeah, I'd be probably shocked at what it costs to care for somebody like that, what it costs to run a nursing home or assisted living.
They are. Well, you think about if somebody had to take care of you from, literally getting you out of bed, dressing you, bathing you, feeding you, all those things, and it's 365 days a year, 24 hours a day.
Including the facility.
It's it's not just 3 meals and a place to sleep. And you've got to protect them sometimes from themselves.
Right, yeah.
The most common thing we have happen that results in lawsuits are falls. And there are people that are trying to get out of their own bed. And if you've got a stubborn old mother or daddy, and
if you got to go to the
get out of his own bed, he's got to go to the bathroom.
Well, he thinks he's not. He thinks he's going to be okay.
And he thinks he's okay. Takes 2 steps and falls, breaks his hip. That's a very common lawsuit for us, and they call it abuse.
Crazy.
If they fault me, they fall at home. It's an accident. Right. They fall in our building. It's abuse. Well, you know what? It is our job to make sure they're safe.
But
so that is part of it. And I'm not saying we don't get sued when we shouldn't, but you know what? It is our job. And when they come in there, we tell them we're going to take them safe, and we're going to take care of them, and those last years are going to be, is it?
Yeah, maybe there's a gap between that and that you can feel.
Well, and I do think Truesdale, that's part of our mission. So will we do that? Now, again, you talked about our students at the school getting older. Well, when we first started 19 years ago, our average age at the school was 37. Well, add 19 years to that. I have 2 students that presently live in assisted living. Their parents are both deceased. They live in an assisted living building, and they come to the school during the day. So we go pick them up at the assisted living. Their activities are still with their friends, but they're 62 years old. Well, maybe part of our mission is caring for older, mentally challenged adults. We are at Truesdale, we are at a turning point of saying, how do you fulfill your mission?
And is there a cutoff, or is there not a cutoff?
I don't know. When we started, it was learning for life. But what are the things people need to learn when they're 50 or 60 that's different from the ones we're taking right out of high school that are 22? I can tell you their interests are very different.
Very different.
They're not as interested in playing basketball at 62. But what are they interested in? Do they still have interest in learning things? Oh yeah, absolutely. But maybe they don't see as well, and the books need to be books on tape, not.
Well, you've got a big challenge ahead of you, don't you?
There's a lot of opportunities in front of us to do good things and make a difference. And I can tell you, we'll do surveys with our students and our families, and one of the most common things that I didn't see coming, and you know, sometimes you do something for the right reason and something good happens and you didn't even realize it would. What I didn't realize is that population, when they were students at Cleveland High School or Bradley High School, who both have good programs for mentally challenged students, but what they don't have is a peer group. They don't have, you had a little posse that you ran with in high school.
Yeah.
So did I. I mean, we were best of friends. We were buds and we still talk. I still see old crazy Victor Hicks and some of my buddies that went to high school with me. But you know, Sarah didn't have that growing up. There weren't a lot of Down syndrome friends that hung out together. Well, they didn't drive. They didn't, if you didn't take them and go, they didn't have that. The thing that when we do surveys of what do you love the most about Truesdale School? What do you enjoy the most? What do you learn the most? We go through all of our surveys. The one thing that I get is Truesdale School is my family. What they've got now is that posse, is that family.
A connection.
Sarah went to church with us on Sundays, but she was, academically, she didn't fit with her age group in a Sunday school class. So if she was 16, but understood more at a fourth grade level, are you going to put her in a Sunday school class with fourth graders?
That's going to confuse them.
No, I mean, it's not right for either group. So what did she do? She worked in the nursery, loved it, had a great time in the nursery. But you know what she missed? She missed all those things we all got out of Sunday school classes. She missed all those. Now, was she involved in the church and were they great to her? Absolutely, they were wonderful. But she still didn't have that little peer group. So are the little, you know, some of the little things that we do, just giving her, you know, you had 20 or 30 acquaintances in high school, but 4 or 5 that were your buddies. Sarah's got 40 at Truesdale School that are acquaintances.
Maybe that's enough of a
and
mission.
That's a big deal right there by itself.
Maybe that's, I mean,
But
maybe we
now-
don't have to look for.
But now as we go from 22 years old to 60, how do we need to adjust that to make it, to kind of be able to give them as full a life as possible? So, you know,
and maybe it's still the same thing.
You know, and this is exactly what our board sits around the table and talks about. What do we do next? What's the next? I mean, what we're doing now, we're doing pretty darn well. Now, there's some things we can make better, but what we're doing next, that's what we got to decide.
Where'd you get the name Truesdale?
Oh, I'm embarrassed now.
Has anybody ever asked you that?
Yeah, sort of. Mainly, especially if you are a Tennessee kind of history guy or you go to Nashville much. There is a Trousdale County in Nashville. When I was looking for a nonprofit to acquire control of, and this sounds stupid, but in 1987, they changed the tax law, and the not-for-profits that started before 87 really had some features that were much more beneficial than the ones that you can start today. They changed some of the tax laws that were with it. So I'm looking for an old style not-for-profit in 91 when I'm looking for one to acquire control of. Well, there's, and this is not a slam on any of our Israeli friends, but there's a little group of Jewish gentlemen that were part of HCA Hospital and that was about when HCA was going to go public. Well, some of the assets in HCA did not fit the public offering. In other words, some of the assets were not profitable. This little group that was part of the ownership of HCA said, well, we'll start a not-for-profit, and you can put the bad assets in this, and we get some tax benefits, and they ought to work with that. So they started what they called Truesdale, but they thought they were naming it after Trousdale County. Okay, I didn't know that story. So I meet these gentlemen up in New Jersey and said, well, you know, and what happened was when it came time to actually do that, to move the bad assets in there, they got in a fight with the other partners over the value of the assets, so they never put anything in it. So they had a not-for-profit that was formed, but no assets in it. So it was kind of a perfect setup for me.
Sure.
I could reimburse them for some of the cost of setting it up.
Yeah.
And then I stepped on the board and they stepped off. But they kept calling it Truesdale. And I said, okay, Truesdale, you know, I didn't even, in my little simple mind, I didn't put together that
So
it
we
was
really should be
Trousdale.
calling it Trousdale, but we're calling
That's
it
correct.
Truesdale because
And you know, people from Nashville, when I talk to our attorneys
Yeah.
and folks over there, they'll say, well, how's Trousdale doing? And I said, well, Trousdale's doing just fine, thank you. But no, it was because I didn't know what I was doing once again.
you keep up the rouge or whatever. you're doing.
Well, I had told everybody and his brother it was Truesdale, so
What is it?
as I tell my wife, that's my story and I'm sticking with it.
Fiction's or reality stranger than fiction.
Isn't that the truth?
Do you think? What would you say is? Besides that, which has become your mission, whether you like it or not, that's your mission.
It is. And I like it.
What keeps you inspired? I mean, do you read anything? Do you read sayings on the internet?
I do like to read. The work gets in the way of it some. I will look forward to having maybe a little more free time in the future to
What would you read?
to read. I tell you, this just sounds stupid. My wife is a voracious reader and loves to read fiction and what have you. But I tend to read sort of self-help things. I like to read biographies
Of certain people?
of certain people. I mean, and they don't have to be necessarily the people that I think have been very impactful. There was a great book years ago called The Speaker of the House that was written by a Democrat, I'll leave unnamed, that gave such, I thought, a beautiful picture of this is how it works. This is how the Speaker of the House sits with both sides of the fence and works things out, and some of the things I feel like we've lost in today's politics.
Is that entertaining to you, or is it?
It's interesting, entertaining. It's also educating. I mean, it's because how many times, how many times have I sat between a buyer and a seller and, a title company or somebody that, to make sure the project finished and got done.
But you're not a
And
fiction reader,
and
right?
somebody has to do. I really don't. No, I really tend to read.
So it's got to be.
I read a lot of the old sports, the ex-players that write books and.
But something's got to be moving. You've got to be moving it forward.
I'll tell you, my favorite thing I've just read is a book called Grit, Grit.
I'm familiar with that. a
Angela
little
Duckworth wrote it.
bit. Which talks about perseverance.
Talks about what's a common thread in successful people.
Which she says is perseverance, right?
Absolutely.
And two other things.
And finding passion.
Passion and perseverance, yeah.
And the one thing that I loved about it and that I really wanted to, and I almost hate to say this out loud because somebody's have to call me on it, I really would love to figure out a way to teach part of that in a school system.
This goes back to actually
maybe you take that as part of the Truesdale thing where I say, can we offer something to the public school system that says to our young people, try everything. If you fail, it's okay. It's important to fail. It's important to try things and say, oh my gosh, that was great. That was fun. I loved it.
Do you believe that people have talent stacks? Maybe they're not really specifically good at this one little thing, but they're pretty good at all these other areas, and their talent stacks makes them perfect for this thing.
For this specific assignment. Yep, I totally agree. How many? I mean, you wouldn't hire a plumber to do your carpentry work.
Nope.
And yet there's some of those guys. And I'll tell you, my brother Bill, who is a retired physician here in town, is one of the smartest people and is one of my absolute heroes. But he can look at something that I'll look at it and say, I don't know how the heck you do that. And he'll say, oh no, Tom. I mean, even when he was a kid, I mean, he put a alarm clock hooked to the old percolator in our house, and it was an automatic coffee maker. The alarm clock would go off, and the coffee would start going, and it was like, son of a gun, how do you do that?
Yeah.
You know, I fix something, or I build a swing set for my kids, and I've got parts left. You know, I mean,
One leg short of the other.
but when I came out of college, I almost went to work for Westvaco. They sent me to New York to go through a personality profile testing program. At the end of 3 days of this testing program, they said, we're going to recommend you as a salesman, which is kind of where I thought I'd probably land anyway, for Westvaco. But the psychologist said, I want to tell you, and I know from your profile it's not going to hurt your feelings, but he said, I've never tested anybody with a lower mechanical aptitude than you have. He said, if you have a tool chest, give it away. And I laughed. I said, when my wife and I got married, my father gave my wife a tool chest and said, don't let Tom play with this. I'm not good at that. Bill, on the other hand, looks at a stack of wood and sees a house. And it's so what you're saying is exactly right. You have these stacks of gifts.
Of gifts that make you good at a specific area, but it doesn't really have a name.
You know, I look at you and say, you build. You're good at it. You can build things.
I can build.
But you know what? Your greatest gift, maybe, is your way with people. That's a stacked gift.
Some would argue that.
Well, you know what? Sometimes being direct is a way with people, in a good way. But you have those gifts that, you know, and you've got people that work for you that can do the carpentry part, but they can't get along with the next guy.
Well, I may have to talk to a brick mason.
Yep.
That could hit me.
Yep. And
they might. They're just not going to take a whole lot.
Oh.
Or a roofer.
And the brick
But then you got to go to the bank and say,
yep.
Yes, and the appraiser, and then the homeowner, and then the wife. So maybe that...
But that's why everybody can't do your job.
Maybe that allows me to talk to different...
I agree.
...facets.
But I think that's a example of those stacked gifts.
And so, wonder how football... I mean, it
impacted
everything.
my life.
How did what made you walk out on the field and go out for football in high school?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had two older brothers that played, and I knew the game a little bit because of them, and you know, thought I might be, and I liked it. I liked the physical part of it, but the things that I love the most, and I think these are kind of, again, an example of your stacked gifts. The greatest part about a team is or one of the parts of a team, is it's made up of people that are so different. Mm-hmm. And even more so in college and pros, people from backgrounds that were nothing like mine. Mm-hmm. And people that, I mean, some of them I played with, it'd scare me to let them in my house. Certainly not around my wife. Mm-hmm. But they were great teammates. Mm-hmm. They were, you know, tough, strong, determined, you know, consistent, you know, gave you that, you know, all those things that you wanted. Mm-hmm. But, and you learned that everybody's not like you are. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make them good or bad. It makes them different. They're not like you. It's okay. You can be different. Mm-hmm. You've got different skills. You've got different things. You know, some people are fast as grease lightning, and some people they time with a calendar. You know, so it's a very you're looking at one. Even within my own family, my younger brother Paul's best athlete of our group. You know, he was the only Johnson that could actually run. But all of those people had a common goal, and the thing that was remarkable was that a coach or somebody directing the team, be it a construction crew or whatever, said, this is where we're going. You've all got your part, and you've got to do it right, and you've got to do it well, and you've got to do it with all your heart. You've got to have my back because I'm going to count on you doing it while I do this and while he does that, while he puts in the plumbing and he puts in the footers. And he puts
Maybe
in,
that's what's giving you some skill to run these 13 companies.
And I like being able to pull that team together and give them a focus. And maybe it's because, I'm a little bit of a more simple person, and I don't get too bogged down in all the, nobody will give me an original of anything because I'll lose it. I'm not
organized.
I'm terrible. But I mean, there are people that are meaningful specifics, and there's people that are wandering generalities. Teams were like that, and I love that about football. I like that people different as night and day could stand together with a single purpose and create something that is not easy to do. Football's not fun.
Maybe that's what you enjoyed about it,
I
and
think
that's
it is.
what's
And
that's what's carried
well,
through.
and that's what I was going to
Maybe.
say. If being a football player was all that you ever were, it would be a waste of time. But it's not what you get by playing; it's what you become on the way that's valuable. Now, my son didn't play football; he swam, and he swam at a pretty high level at University of Tennessee. Was really good, but that he got the very same thing out of swimming that I got playing football. I mean, you don't have to, and I see guys that go in the Army, and they get the very same thing that I got out of playing NFL football.
Right.
They got out of being in the Army. That same work harder, get better. Work together, million different types of people, and together you can do something incredible. It's a little, when you're born, you're dependent on your parents, on your mother, or whatever. And your goal is to become independent. But the highest form of function is that maybe getting married or a team, but is that interdependent, where two of you can do more than either one of you can do by yourself.
Codependent, maybe.
Well,
interdependent,
interdependent,
I guess.
It is that
Yeah.
I can climb a wall with this person better than I can climb it by myself. I can take care of 2,000 patients and still go home at 5 o'clock and go to bed.
That's incredible.
And that's unbelievable. But it's only because of the interdependence within the company. And
The team.
The team. And I guess that is what I loved about football and my time there. And we just went to Birmingham. We had a head coach of ours, Bill Battle, who was also athletic director at Alabama, while Nick Saban was down there. But Coach Battle just died. And we had about 40 of our players that showed up for the funeral. And it was one of those that, and you've been in those spots where it was like you were just with them yesterday.
Oh yeah, I've got friends like that
and
that
it was just
we
terrific.
wouldn't miss a beat.
Yeah, it was just remarkable
Weird,
to be with them, and some of them were just as goofy as they were back then, and they're just as apt to punch you in the mouth today as they were then. But together you did something that was not easy to do, and you did it at a high level, and you liked it. I mean, the things that you're the most proud of are the hardest things you've ever done. They aren't the easy things. So
Boy, that's the truth, isn't it?
It is the truth.
It is so true.
So to do something with a group of guys or girls or a team, to do something that's really meaningful and difficult, yeah, that's rewarding. That's a big deal.
Talking about perseverance and persistence in that book, Grit. See, a lady wrote that, right?
Yeah,
And
psychologist.
And I've often said, I cycle bicycles. And I've found that, and I'm no great cyclist by any means, but if you'll hang on, I've calculated it, 12 more strokes.
Yeah.
That will generally take care of about everything, because that other guy's tired too.
Oh, yeah.
And you might get the second win, because you cannot calculate the second
No.
win. But I've gotten it, and it's incredible. and you never know when it's going. You never know when it's going to show up. But when it does, it's euphoria.
You know, and it is one of the, again, that's one of the things, and I've been big on hiring athletes through the years when they come and apply for jobs with us, and but it's always because there is that group, and it's, again, that book speaks to it, that group that'll make one more call, maybe 5 o'clock, but they'll go ahead and make one more, and maybe they don't get home till 6:30, you know, but there's an awful lot of them that also go home at 4:30. And if you don't believe me, you go to the movie theater at 3:30 in the afternoon and see who's sitting there. It's full of salesmen that aren't making the next call.
That's the craziest
and that's
thing,
where they
isn't
are.
it?
You know, why would those places even be open in the afternoon?
Just for salesmen?
Well, they're people that aren't making the next call.
Yeah.
They're the guys that are about to fire themselves.
And they just need a why, even if it's made up. Can a why be made up if you don't have one?
Well, it's, and I'm not saying that money's not important. And I look at our staff, and especially the nurses, and the teachers at the school. They'd quit if you didn't pay them.
Yeah.
But they're not there for the money.
No. And you can't pay them enough.
No, you
You
couldn't.
can't pay them what they're worth.
No, you absolutely could not. That's exactly right. So yeah, it's not just about doing the job. You've got to feel good about the job you're doing is worth doing. It's important, and I think that's a tough thing for salesmen, because there's some people selling stuff that they don't believe in. They don't think it's important. They don't, you know. But you've got the guys that really do believe in their product, and you can tell a difference.
You know, I read a lot of books about old salesmen and stuff
Yeah.
that were on the road, you know, and the clothes on that hook behind their seat. And that must have been a really tough way to make a living.
I tell you, I look, and again, my father was a salesman. He was the sales manager at Hardwick Stove for a lot of years, and you know, was traveled all the time. But yeah, I think that was a hard
I
one.
mean, think about how
That
the
was a hard one.
rejection, do I go in now? Is it too late in the day? Is it too early in the morning? And I've got to act happy, and my wife just got a high cholesterol reading or something, or whatever yours.
Well, and everybody's going through it. I mean,
Everybody's going through it.
Problems. I mean, life is not easy.
If you had to tell yourself, your 20-year-old self something, what would you tell him?
I would remind him that who he is was not a mistake. That God didn't make a mistake when he made you. Be yourself. Go at it wide open and don't quit, ever. Make a call, get turned down, make another one. Analyze why you got turned down, figure out what you can do that helps them. And I think that old line of you can get everything you want in life if you help other people get what they want.
Do you think it's follow your passion, figure out what it is?
I do. I really do. I don't think there's any substitute for, you know, being able to talk to high school kids and say, and because of the football career, I've had an opportunity to speak to a lot of small high school groups and young college groups. But to be able to say, don't focus on what you earn for a specific job. Figure out what you like to do, and the earnings will follow you.
What's the most inspiring book you've read? I mean, if you just had to sit down one evening and read another book to get motivated,
I don't know.
Is there?
I mean, I still am sort of stuck on the Angela Duckworth thing. I'm reading a book now about the history of Mossad and a lot of the missions, the old missions. And one of the things that jumps out at me on, you know, that's Israel's Secret Service kind of group, is that some of those they plan. I mean, they had people working on things today that they weren't going to need for 15 years. I mean, they were implanting people undercover in places they just felt like that they would need. I mean, it wasn't, You know, and again, I like to read some of the old political things.
Do you have two books going at once, or do you stick with one book?
No, I'm bad about starting more than one. Yeah.
What would be the time you'd read them?
I try to make myself read 2 chapters a day, one in the morning, one at night when I get ready to leave. I have trouble doing that sometimes.
See, my time is usually
I'll come into the office
Sunday
and read
evening.
one, and then I'll read.
You mean, I used to
I'll
do
read a
that. I
chapter
used to
just
do
about
a
every day.
page a day and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'll have this book done by the end of the year. I really want to kind of get comfortable and really get into it.
Yeah.
Maybe turn on some music. Do you turn on music?
No, Lord.
Nothing?
No, my brain's too. So I got to get quiet, and yeah, I'll try to read a chapter in the morning when I first get to the office, and then a chapter.
That book.
Yeah.
That whatever that
Yeah,
book is.
I got one at home.
Have you ever written I'll tell you this weird story. I went home one evening and there was a book on my nightstand, and then I moved it to my dresser. Then I moved it back to the nightstand, and I don't know who brought it. My wife didn't bring it. My dad didn't give it to me. My mother didn't give it to me. And I don't know. The only thing I can think of is maybe Georgia Gann gave it. For some reason, I'm thinking, I don't know. I really don't know. But it's the best book I've read.
What is it?
It's that explains life. Success to me it's called Life's Treadmill by a guy named Melvin Kinder. I've read it 3 times. And what it talks about is that as we're growing up, we realize what we want to do and how our life wants to look like. And when we get to there within a reasonable degree, because we can't get there exactly,
Sure.
but we push and we focus on getting there. When we've actually reached it within a reasonable degree, and we should be happy with the reasonable, such as a reasonable marriage, reasonable kids, reasonable career, because it's never going to get.
Oh, it's never 100%, never perfect. If
and
perfect is 100.
Yeah, so when it's not there,
is 80 okay? Yeah.
Yeah, when it gets there, don't over focus past it, and that we're bombarded by advertising and stuff that say you're not successful until you can have this watch or this car, and I need to work harder, I need to work smarter, and it's called On Life's Treadmill. So that was a good
I might
book.
have to see that.
Oh,
Okay,
it's
I like
hard
that.
to find.
Yeah.
I've ordered 2 more off of Amazon, and I've got it for my kids to read. I was going to give it to them for Christmas and say, hey, they ain't going to read it.
Well, now looking back, my dad gave me some things to read too, and I know my mother did. And sure enough, I was looking for something else. And
Let me ask you
anyway,
this.
Yeah.
You going to Liar's Table next week?
I probably will go a day or two. I can't. Boy, I hate to say it like that. You don't put this in there. I could just tolerate it so often.
I can tolerate about 2 times every 2 weeks.
That's about.
And I find myself going like 3 days in a row and then none.
Well,
but
it doesn't take as much to piss me off as it used to. So I used to be a little more tolerant, I think.
I don't, and sometimes I leave there and say, why did I give them my opinion? Because they don't.
Why'd you listen to theirs?
Yeah, why'd I listen to theirs? Because
I tell you, listening to somebody's opinion that you wouldn't ask for advice is a mistake anyway.
And every now and then, they'll have something exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't know how to.
There are some really good people down there.
And sometimes they'll have it right on the money.
That I do enjoy listening to. I mean, not sometimes, most of the time.
Yeah.
Somebody down there, and I'll tell you, I like having some of our public officials that'll show up and
right before the
and
election.
be there, and
Sure,
well before elections.
Sure, yeah.
But even just show up with what's going on right now that are presently in office, And I mean, I look at that, and I couldn't, hell, they'd be way too much in my closet to dig up. I couldn't run for anything.
I was there one.
But I do admire people that are willing to do that.
Boy, I do too. That's something
I'm so glad when you get a really good guy willing to do that, because it's.
Can you imagine having to run for an office and 100, 49% at least voted, did not want you?
Yeah.
You talk about a letdown.
Oh, no. And again, I look at some of those jobs, and I have a friend that's school board, been on the school board quite a while, and I think, oh my gosh. I mean, no matter what decision you make, at least half of the people are against you. And the people that are for you don't say a word.
They don't say nothing.
But the ones that are against you, they'll speak up and, chew you out and give you a hard time and bug you.
You got to be thick-skinned.
Oh, my gosh.
I was at the restaurant one morning, the waitress
And I
came.
told him, I said, I've had 100,000 people laugh at me in Neyland Stadium. A few more won't hurt.
I guess that was a big deal, wasn't it? Did you ever, when you were a center, the guy I know nothing about football, but
I don't know
the
guy
that's in front of you.
Yeah, they call him a middle guard.
Middle guard.
Defensive tackle, yeah.
How many times in a game was that guy going to try to come through you? I mean,
that pretty much his job was to control the same space that I was in. Yeah, so it was that was the other one that I loved about the game was. They
didn't put the little guy there, right?
Well, no, those were not nice people typically. And they weren't little, right? But then I wasn't all that little.
How tall were you in your prime?
I played at Tennessee probably 6'2", 250, something like that.
Were you? I'm sure you were
lifted weights all the time and all that stuff, and yeah. But but again, one of the things that you did like is you played on Saturday, you watched the film of the game or the tape of the game on Sunday, and you went over it with the 5 guys that were next to you and the guys playing the position behind you. So you might have 8 or 9 in the room with you with a coach that was glad to correct any mistakes that you might make.
So they're critiquing every snap.
Single play.
Golly.
Yeah, every step, every person,
He got off the line before you did, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, it was that part of it was not, I don't mean to say brutal, but that part of it, if you were sensitive at all, you would go home. So yeah, they would just. A matter of fact, I had a coach with the Redskins that we were walking off the field after practice. He wasn't actually my coach, but he was one that coached the special teams that I snapped for punts. And he said, Johnson, he said, you're the worst center that's ever played for me in my life. And I said, I am. I said, so you're looking for somebody to replace me? And he said, every day.
Golly.
And he said, your job is to make sure I can't find one. And I think that was one of the things I sort of liked about the game was, and this was one of my favorite coaches, a guy named Jack Pardee, who just died recently. You knew right where you stood. Mm-hmm. You knew when you did a good job. You knew you didn't do a good job every play. Mm-hmm. You got beat sometimes. You beat somebody. Sometimes you play against some guy that was supposed to be an All-American superstar, and you just put him right on his back. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you were supposed to be the big dog, and he put you on your back.
But you have to.
And you knew you had to, by God, every day show up, be ready to play, be ready to screw up, be ready to fix it, be ready to take responsibility for you, be able to say to the running back that was behind you that when you didn't block the guy,
he's
and
not
that
too
guy
thrilled
just got
either,
his head
right?
knocked off.
Yeah,
you got to be able to go back there and pick that guy up and say, "Hey, sorry, that was my fault."
He got through.
He got through. It's my fault. It won't happen again. Maybe. But I mean, so those are great life lessons.
Did you ever have anybody that I just can't stop this guy? He just keeps getting through, and because you have to snap the ball and then go like that, right?
You have to figure out your ways of.
What was your first move
of adapting I mean, it's like anything else. It's technique. It's like, you know, you learn all the little, you learn all the little tricks to how to cut an angle that's going to fit
so
just
say you
right.
snap the ball. What's your first move?
Well, it depends on what the play is.
Is
I
it
guess.
bring your arm up?
If the play's going around the end or something, maybe your first step is to put your hat on his knee and, you know, kind of cut him off so he can't go towards the play. But if the play's right behind you, maybe your job is to plant your face right on his face.
So you're either going right, straight, or left.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple game in a lot of ways. You kind of pick
Out
a different color shirt.
The center's got to know the play too.
Well, they all do, yeah. And you got to know what your teammates have got are supposed to be doing too. I mean, again, it's a, you know, it's like you building a building. Mm-hmm. You've got to know what everybody on the team is doing.
But when you got hit, did you see stars?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had times where I was, looking out the ear hole of my helmet. Yeah.
Because the helmet.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, there were days that people mistreated you a bit. But you know what? Some days you're the hammer, and some days you're the nail. Mm-hmm. So there were days that they weren't glad to see me.
Were they bigger than you typically?
Oh, sometimes, yeah. There were a lot of guys. You know what? There's always somebody bigger, faster, stronger, smarter than you are, no matter what. Now, can you figure out a way to win? Yeah.
So that's technique.
You had
the whole game to figure out, hey, this guy leans with his...
You watched film of them all the weeks before.
Of that particular guy?
Yeah, playing for another team, yeah. You watch, if you're playing Alabama, you watched Alabama play Auburn.
So you watched they said, hey, that guy, he's right-handed, he's left-footed, he's...
Yep, when he's going right, he's leaning that direction. When he's going lefty, when he's going to drop back in pass protection, he's got his weight on his...
Yeah, now if he goes backwards, now you got to look for somebody else to block, right?
Yeah. There's usually somebody show up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a banker collecting from you. They're not always the same guy.
But there's somebody going to show up.
Somebody going to show up, you don't pay. Yeah. No, it's a great game, and I wouldn't trade my years doing it. But it's a game full of lessons, and there's a lot of value in it. You don't have to play, in the NFL to get the good parts. The kids that are playing at Cleveland High School, they're learning those same lessons.
Same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do look at coaches and think, some of these guys making $1 million in the NFL, playing the ones that probably touch more people and make a bigger difference are those guys coaching at Cleveland and Bradley and
probably so,
and Walker Valley.
Maybe
I'd rather them make $1 million really, because they're touching more lives.
That's right.
And really having a bigger impact than some of those guys in the NFL. They're selling more product on the commercials, but
sure, but
they're changing lives.
You're right.
That's exactly right.
Well, Tom, we got a lot.
This has been fun.
Let's look forward to the future, buddy.
Hey, it's going to be great.
We gotta think it's going to be wonderful, and we got to come up with a why. And here we're the end of the year. This will be coming out about the first of the year, and we want to break 2025 off the chain.
Buddy, we can do it. Everybody's got to do their part.